It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Wednesday, January 24th, and so happy for you joining us. We are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. Now today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have Health is Happiness, the Foundational Figures Word Study, and of course commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. All right, everyone, how are you doing? Yes, it is Wednesday, the middle of the week. It is hump day. I hope you guys have had a good week so far. How is your morning going? Don't forget, tomorrow we have Q&A Thursday. Get those questions ready. Send them to me whenever you can. Would love to get those questions from you. I've already got 2 questions in right now. Now, if you haven't yet, please leave a like and comment to build our community. Yes, today's video, 1007, I believe. Let's make sure that we can leave a like and a comment. Just want to hear how things are and how everything is going for you guys too, right? Super happy for everyone joining us every week down the Morning Star Drive. So let's get up and support each other each and every day. This week's Sunday message title: He answers through your heart and the promises of the Old Testament fulfilled through the the promise of the old time period fulfilled through the new time period. All right, so it is Wednesday. It is Wednesday, the middle of the week. Very, very excited and happy. Yes, it's already the 24th, which means we have exactly 1 week left before the end of January. Guys, we are pushing forward. We have 1 week before the first month of 2024 is already over. I hope that all of us can kind of really set our goals, what we really want to do for this year. I hope you guys are having amazing and awesome conversations with each other, because that is something I really think that is important for us, especially as we are human. And, we are people that are going through different things in life. Let us go through different conversations with each other. Let's really make sure that we have that mentality and mindset that is fitting as people who are lovers and brides of God, but also we love each other and take care of each other too. Man, I would say, every week I always talk to people, and people are struggling, people going through difficult things, and it's just part of life. But it's something where we're able to become those that can help each other, just allowing someone to speak their heart and their mind, right? I think that's something that's very, very important, even talking about difficult subjects and stuff, right? Right now, I'm going to tell you this right now, like, the Monday podcast I did on marriage, right? I talked about marriage and stuff like that too. It's pretty much, like a lot of people talk about it, right? And it is something that, it's something that comes up because it is an important topic. It's something that a lot of people don't get a chance to talk about much, right? And because it's so important, sometimes it becomes stressing, or we get a little bit anxious when these things come up, or if we're going to be participating in, or whatever it is. Yeah, people go through that thing inside their hearts and their minds, right? And because it is a big topic, and it could be a very sensitive topic too, I have people call me all the time, and I think it's great, right? I think it's great, and I think it's something that we should be discussing more and more. And like, I'm going to tell you this, like even for me, I got a confession to make too. I get someone to call me, and they're telling me, hey, I just want you to be careful when you talk about that, and for myself, one thing I take pride in this podcast is that I'm very, very open. I talk about the things that I really think are important and people should talk about. Maybe it might not be something that people would want to talk about if they're very sensitive to it, and I understand that too. But I get really sensitive when if I feel that someone's trying to not censor me, what's the right word? Like say, hey, you shouldn't talk about that. However, here's the interesting part. I had a good friend of mine call me about the Monday podcast, and they were not even saying that, but I thought they were going to go into that. So, in Korean, they have this thing called the uk. Have you guys heard of that? Uk. Uk is like when you have that impulse to defend your, hey, there's no way I'm going to stop. You know how you defend yourself and you cut people off and stuff like that? I had that moment because I didn't fully listen. And I felt really bad. I really did, because I'm like, hey, for me, I'm just I'm so proud of what we've done with this podcast and how transparent and how much we like to discuss. And I'm like, yeah. And whenever I feel that someone is trying to come against it or say, or say that I can't say or do or talk about certain things, I'm pretty defensive about it, right? And I would say that caused me to have an ook moment. Yet I was like, when I start to listen, I was like, wait a second, they're totally not saying that. They're totally not saying that at all. And I just felt really bad. I'm going to be honest. I felt really, really bad about it. I'm sure you guys have ever been through that where it's something really important to you. And I guess because it's important to me, I get a little bit more sensitive to it. And I just didn't listen. And I had that ook moment and I tried to defend it. But then when I kind of slowed down and stopped and thought about it, I was like, just allow this person to speak everything they wanted to say. And they're totally not saying that. Totally not saying that. Right? And the point was a good point. It's a point that I make too, is sometimes we have good intentions and sometimes we're saying things in a certain way and sometimes it may not come out the way that we thought it would, right? So I want to reiterate once again, I'm not going to stop talking about this topic as long as people want to talk about it, but the one thing I am going to just clarify once again, I am not saying that the only way to fulfill the purpose of creation is to get married and have family, right? And if you think about it very carefully, that doesn't make sense that I say that. Because if that's the case, and I am a face star, that means I'm saying that I cannot fulfill the purpose of creation, which doesn't make any sense, right? So, and for me, I know there's a lot of variables involved when you're listening to a podcast. Like, I thought I was pretty clear when I said the vast majority will get married. I didn't say everyone. I said the vast majority, right? Which means that not everyone, right? And I didn't, and I hope I wasn't coming off saying that the only way to fulfill the purpose of creation is through marriage. No, I'm hoping I didn't come off that way, right? So that's why I was trying to be very clear that almost all, not everyone, not including stars and that very small group of people, but I'm not saying that those people are not fulfilling the purpose of creation, right? So, when you talk to me, and I would say this is very, very interesting. I think one thing that makes it a little bit more sensitive, and maybe it's just me, because I'm trying to figure out my own mind and where I'm sensitive to, but I'm not sure. Like, I want to get your opinion on this. I really don't like it when people say, "Hey, a lot of people are misunderstanding what you're saying." And for me, I'm kind of more like a lot. What does a lot mean, right? Because, for instance, if we have, like, say, over 300 people listening to this podcast, and there's like 1, 2, 3 people, that's like 1%. If it's 1%, I'd be like, no, I think that's quite normal, right? A lot of people, imagine, let's say in the future, which I do believe, this podcast is going to have like thousands of people listening to it. And if there's like 300 out of, say, 50,000, for me, it's not a big deal. Not a big deal, not meaning that I don't care. It's just, I think that's normal, right? I don't know. Do you guys ever get that? If someone says to you, "Hey, a lot of people are saying this," like, I would prefer someone just talk about maybe themselves, their own opinion and what they think, which I think is, because that's the only person you can really speak for. Or like, say, one really, really close friend that they talk to or something along that line, right? But if it's just like a lot of people, it could be taken in many different ways, right? And that just for me, I don't know. Is that a bad way of stating something or saying something to someone like, "Hey, a lot of people are saying this," right? Maybe, is it me that's too sensitive to that? Like, because it makes me feel that there's so many people, but then in the end, I found out it's 3 or 2. You know what I mean? Like, for me, I'm just like, yeah, is that really a lot? Like, it would have to be in ratio to, like, if there's only 3 people listening and 2 people misunderstand, that's like 67%, right? That's a big deal, like, ratio-wise, right? But if it's like 300, 400 people and then 2, 3 people, I think that's something, for me, it could be misunderstood. Like, oh, a lot of people are saying. For me, a lot of people would be like 30, 40%, maybe even 50% of them, right? So, yeah. But I had to catch myself. And I had to like, all right, Sky, just sit back and relax. Like, no need to defend yourself or anything else like that. Just let people say everything they need to say, and it should be fine. Feedback is feedback, and and I think that's one of the things that I'm super proud of this community is that we're pretty good with, because we, for most of us here who listen to this podcast, we're pretty good with discernment in what we hear in this podcast, right? I think everyone here is because. Because people know my style of speaking and they know the context. Like, for instance, what I talked about on Monday, I talked about a conversation I had with a member who wanted to put their, felt like they were, they couldn't fulfill their dreams if they got married, kind of thing, right? And of course, my point was, hey, I think it's about priority. Priority makes people feel they're sacrificing or not. And on top of that, maybe people just don't know how important or how big it is to fulfill the physical purpose of creation. You know what I mean? Like, I put that into context before I went into why the marriage is such a big thing, right? And I'm hoping, but you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm hoping that I did very clearly say that the vast majority, not everyone, but the vast majority. And so that's why I don't really. I'm not going to say I don't accept. I'm just saying that I didn't say that marriage was the only way to fulfill the purpose of creation, because we know that's not true, right? So, and like, if I were to talk about any podcaster, anyone who's broadcasting live over the internet, I think one thing that is acceptable is probably about, I would say 10, 15% of the people who listen will misunderstand no matter what. What does that mean? It's just part of the deal of doing a public podcast, right? My example would be, some people are sensitive to certain topics. Some people are going through difficulties in their life, difficult situations, circumstances, which makes them listen to things differently, right? And some people, may not be able to, they might have the inability to discern what is being said, but they're kind of just like triggered by a topic or something along that line. And I understand that, and I'm okay with it. I really am, right? I'm saying it's acceptable that 10 to 15% will have a misunderstanding, right? And this is perfect because, like, the one thing I love about Miri, who gave the audio yesterday, like, she is sending an audio of her thoughts and what she thinks might be wrong. Or she cautions me, which is great, right? And a lot of you out there who are posting comments, that's great. And that's, like I said, one of the biggest things I'm so proud of this community is our transparency and the ability for all of us to discuss together and kind of say what's on our mind, right? We can disagree with each other, and it's okay. Disagreement is just part of life. We have our differences, our different thoughts and perspectives. Of course, when it comes to things that are absolute truths, obviously no one here is freaking out about that. But, when it comes to interpretations or what we think is more important, we have different thoughts, perspectives, mentalities, but in the end, we are all reaching towards the exact same goal. And that's what makes me happy, right? That we're able to talk about it. Everything is up for discussion. So I am very happy, just like Miri did. I'm so happy she did that. And I'm so thankful she said that, because what she said can actually clear up misunderstandings from that other people might have. Right? People that are in the same boat as her, right? And I think that is awesome, right? Because I don't disagree with her. Like, yeah, it's true. Obviously, there's two purposes of creation. One is a spiritual and one is physical. Spiritual purpose of creation, which means to become the counterpart of love with God. That is what everyone has to do, regardless of, what department, if you're married or not, whatever it is. That's what everyone has to do, right? The physical purpose of creation, what I'm saying, the physical purpose of creation is also part of the purpose of creation, right? And everyone's going to fulfill the spiritual purpose of creation, and the majority of people are going to fulfill the physical purpose of creation, which both have a great plan in God's will, right? There's both. Both are needed. Both are absolutely needed. You couldn't have a history if it was just only spiritual purpose of creation. Because then you negate what is in the physical world, right? So everyone must fulfill the spiritual purpose of creation, and the vast majority of people will fulfill the spiritual and physical purpose of creation along with it, right? So, like I'm so thankful people are calling, people are DMing me, people are saying, hey, what do you think about this? Or I disagree with this. And in most cases, when me and people just talk a little bit, we realize we're not in disagreement about anything. We're not. right? It's more of, can you emphasize more about this, right? But I would say that when it comes to discussion and topics, if we're discussing a certain singular topic, like a singular topic, right, then we should have the ability to discern that, yeah, the reason why I'm talking so much about the physical purpose of creation is because of the context of where this situation comes from, right? And then it's not even saying that this is the number one thing, but there's going to be the discernment that is absolutely necessary for that too. So that's one of the things that I really think is important for us too. And especially, I would say those who've been listening to this podcast for a very, 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 very long time, like I would say for a minimum 3 to 6 months, if you're listening, you'll kind of catch and you're going to catch and see, oh, yep, this is what he's talking about. He's not saying that, but he's specifically focusing on this topic, and that's why he's making it sound so important, because that's the topic at hand kind of thing. So it's something that I'm very, very thankful, grateful, and it's something that I really want to make sure that many people are, that there's not going to be misunderstanding, right? And I want this to be that place of discussion, that place of topic, right? And like I said, go ahead, guys, send in your audios and stuff like that. Would love to hear your opinions and your thoughts, right? And just like yesterday's podcast, I will give my rebuttal to, yeah, Miri said this. I agree with this point. I agree with this. I probably wouldn't do this, but I agree with this, this, and this. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's healthy. Healthy discourse, healthy discussion. This is when we're going to be able to break away from misunderstandings, right? So, I talked to I've already talked to a couple people about this already, about my topic on Monday. And one of the things that I did notice is while I'm talking to people, we're going to be seeing that, no matter what, there's always going to be good and bad experiences for everything, right? And we can't base it solely on the bad experiences people have. We can't base it solely on the good experiences also, right? We have to look at it from a very, what's that word? The holistic point of view, holistic view of it, right? And this is when we're going to be able to say, oh, this is what this is talking about here. I understand this point here now too, right? So I really hope that's something that all of us can really open our hearts and our minds to more and more each and every day. And like I said, one of the biggest things I'm so proud of, transparency, discussion, the ability for us to talk about it in the comment section and stuff. And, I had this interesting conversation too with someone else. And I think it's a good question even for myself is, how much do I care about what people think about me or how they see me? And my gut reaction is, I don't care what people think. But technically speaking, when I think about my life too, I do, and I think we should care to a certain extent, right? Because I would say that there are some things that I would say in the heat of the moment, right? There are some things I'll say in the heat of the moment. There'll be some rant that comes out. But later when I think about it more deeply, I'm like, ooh, I shouldn't have said that. You know what I mean? Where I will look back at what I did and I will start to pull back and say, should I have said that, right? And I should be thinking about how people think about me, especially if it's not who I really am, right? And sometimes we do make mistakes in the things that I say or how I present myself. And I present someone who is not really me, right? Who I want to be either. Like, oh, I don't want to be that type of person. I don't want to be known for that type of person because I'm totally not like that. I was just having an emotional moment or something along that line. So I do think there's like a, should I care? In some things, yes, and some things, no, right? Should we be honest? Absolutely. Should we be transparent? Absolutely, right? And, but then there's also going to be lines drawn of how honest we should be. So it's kind of like, how honest should you be? Well, it depends. Like, so all you married husbands out there, if your wife says to you, "How do I look?" You're not going to say, "Man, that's ugly." Oh man, that makes you look fat, right? You're very careful with your words, right? There's a person you're going to be living with, and this person you're going to be seeing when you go to bed too, and it's not going to be an easy thing. And we do censor ourselves because some things we don't think clearly enough about when it actually comes out of our mouth, kind of thing, right? So it's very, very interesting, and I think it's something that it's a great topic also. Like, you know what? When I talk to you guys out there, and I'm not saying you guys as in just listeners, when I just talk to members all the time, one of the great things is it's just really, really amazing that when we really get down to talking deeply with each other, we get to know each other more deeply, but the real topics, like the things that we should be discussing, come out, and you get to really talk about it, get it into your hearts and minds. And I think it's something that we have to really invest our time with each other too. Like, some things are super personal, and there's no need to put it out into the open in public, but I'm thankful that we're pretty open when it comes to our community over here, right? One thing, there's something interesting about me personally. There's one thing I'm doing right now, which is quite interesting, is I'm actually doing intermittent fasting. It's basically about 16 hours a day of no food and then 8-hour day window of just eating whatever I want, right? And the interesting thing is I didn't even start it on purpose. It just happened naturally ever since I left Vancouver. Now, of course, I don't have my mom, setting out fruits and veggies every morning. Of course, that's one of the reasons. But when I was in Korea, the interesting thing was I was living in a house near Wonmyeongdong, but in the first 2 weeks of it, I had no car. And there was most of the time there's no one around me with a car. So I would wake up, do my pre-dawn, everything else. And even when I was hungry, I couldn't go out because I'm in the middle of the countryside. Even when I was really hungry, I couldn't go out. And most times there is no one with a car near me. So I just ended up fasting just naturally. I ended up losing weight and also seeing huge benefits in other areas too. And what was so cool is 2 days ago, I saw an interesting study on intermittent fasting. And it talks about how your brain absolutely benefits from intermittent fasting, right? And they said that intermittent fasting should actually be a part of your life, right? Of the benefits it does to your brain and how it feeds your brain, right? Like, for me, I don't do it to lose weight. I don't, right? But a ton of people do intermittent fasting to lose weight. I don't do it to lose weight. Why? Because I'm a man. And as a man, I want to gain weight, especially muscle mass. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I want. But, for me, it's been quite hectic moving from country to country. And I'm overseas for the last 4 months. And, for me, finding a new gym to go to and stuff, trying to get my motivation back on track with exercising. I'm trying my best to do it, but so far it's basically badminton once a week, volleyball once or twice a week too. But for me I'm not trying to lose weight, so that's not the whole purpose of me continuing my intermittent fasting. I do it because of I was doing it just because of the situation and I got used to it. But I think one thing that was quite interesting is when I heard that podcast, I want to do it for my brain function. You guys should take a look at it. It's very, very interesting how intermittent fasting affects both men and women in different ways too. So yeah, I am trying it out right now. I've been doing it for the last 3 or 4 months. They said that if you're just losing weight, intermittent fasting is good for up to a year. And then after a year, there's no real benefit of losing weight. For those of you who want to be sharp and more focused, feeding your brain with different natural chemicals that actually make your brain more sharper and more focused. I would suggest it. It's very, very amazing. And what's even cooler is this doctor was talking about intermittent fasting, that during the 16 hours, water, tea, and coffee is fine. Which I was like, cool, right? That's why I have my coffee in the morning. And then, I'm not breaking my intermittent fast by drinking coffee either. So that's kind of like that too, right? Yeah. Oh, so that's kind of what I'm doing. I don't know if any of you guys, anyone else out there is doing intermittent fasting, let me know. One thing is, they said, is the keto diet. The keto diet is a way that you can feed your brain those good natural chemicals through the foods that you eat. However, they said that intermittent fasting can do the exact same thing with those same chemicals. It releases into your brain and stuff. So I found that to be kind of cool too. But yeah, 16 is usually 16 and 8. 16 hours of fasting, an 8-hour window, usually 2 to 10 p.m. or 12 to 8 p.m. where you can eat whatever you want, kind of thing. Right? Just keep eating during that window. Once the window shuts, it's just water, tea, and coffee, which I am completely okay with. Yeah, I don't know. You guys can tell me if you guys been through intermittent fasting too or not. Oh, by the way, what do you guys think about yesterday's Provi in the media? Tell me that is hopeful and something I hope that we can continue to pray about, right? Because if the Supreme Court ruled this, then it really helps Sunsteam's case, because even in Sunsteam's case, there is no evidence against Sunsteam, like no hard evidence. It's just the victim testimony, right? Now, one thing I do want to say is it's hopeful, but it's not like a shoe-in victory, right? We still need more powerful prayers to take this to the next level. Because, like when I think about all the small things God is doing, like behind the scenes to help, what's going to happen this year, it's really interesting because remember, like I said last year, September 23rd or whatever it was, the new Supreme Court Chief Justice was elected for the next 6 years. And he's, one of the big things he wants is he ridiculed and mocked the Korean justice system and wants to fix it. So there's a really good thing there. And then just now, we see this Supreme Court new ruling about sexual crime victim statements without evidence is no longer accepted as a sole evidence to make a man guilty, or not a man, but someone guilty of sexual crime. So I'm just like, this is awesome. Now, just as God is working hard to work on the full situation, we have to realize Satan is really attacking too on the other side, right? Because this is an article I just saw today, so I couldn't put it in yesterday's Provi in the media, but this is crazy. So the Daejeon District Prosecutor's Office, they're the ones that led Sunsteam's trial, right, and KJS's trial. They just received an award because of the work they did on Sunsteam's trial. The award is the 2024 Women and Children's Human Rights Award, right? So this Daejeon District Prosecutor's Office, right, Women and Children's Crime Investigation Department, which investigated Sunsteam, right, won the Women's and Children's Human Rights Award of the Year, awarded by the Korean Women Lawyers Association. So it's coming from that association there. On the 22nd of January, the Korean Women Lawyers Association said, "We thoroughly investigated the sexual violence case committed by the head of a religious group and his helpers, which caused social outrage, and arrested and indicted them. We provided protection and support to the victim and brought out the convictions of all accomplices. It raised an alarm and contributed to protecting women's human rights," right? So for me, I think it's, quite alarming that they said they thoroughly investigated the sexual violence case committed by the head of, I think the biggest thing there is they have an agenda in their heart, right? So an agenda on what they want to show the people. So for me, I found it really odd. I was talking to another friend of mine too. We found it really odd that this prosecution team that's only doing their job, it's their job to do that, is getting a social recognition award, right? It's not from the government, anyone else, it's from a certain organization. And I would say the problem with this is if, people who are like, especially law enforcement, if they're getting awards for work that they do for a social cause, then it's possible that in the future, these things can sway them to do their work to get social recognition. Because especially in today's society, those who are helping social causes get higher up in the rankings, right? So in the future, they could be favored for higher positions if they get more of these social recognition. So we just got to recognize that just as much as God is working, Satan is working just as hard. So we got to keep praying, right? We got to keep praying so that all the things that God does is not thwarted by what Satan does. Right? So think about the whole time, Satan always jumps in. 6,000 years ago, Adam and Eve, chosen to start the history of God, Satan steps in and tempts them to fall. God started the wheel, but Satan always steps in. And it isn't any different from what happened last year in 2023 also, right? So I hope that all of us gotta pray. Gotta pray, stay on top of things, make sure that God's history is always advancing and always getting better. Okay? Last but not least, we have a new poll that just came out. I just posted it like maybe an hour ago, maybe not even an hour ago, right? But it's about how big is your church choir? And this is percentage of church size, not including Milky Way, right? Is it 10% or more? So which basically means that not including Milky Way, if your church is 200 people, then do you have 20 people or more in your choir, right? Or do you have less than that 10%? Or you don't have a choir. And so far, we've only had 5 votes, but we have 60% say less than 10%, 20% say they don't have a church choir. And not having a church choir is most likely because your church is like, I would say under 50 people, right? It's hard to get, that many people to do choir in a group that small. But if you're under 50 people, I can see not having a choir in because of that size, right? And 10% or more is 20%, which I think is quite noble too, that we have 20. We got to push it further. Like, I would discount churches that are too small to have their own choir. We can discount them because, it's just size doesn't allow them to have it. But when you do have the size, like 60, 70, people, whatever it is, I do think it's something where we have to have this big push for the choir. Because I'll tell you, like I said, last Sunday, I went to the large church, which is kind of like the symbolic church of Malaysia, right? The choir was inspiring. I think they had like 20, 21 people in it, right? Really, really inspiring. They looked, I even took pictures of it. I haven't even posted it yet, but I was inspired by it. But it makes a huge difference. And not only to us looking at or feeling it inside the service, but also to God, of these people all dedicating their time and giving glory to the Holy Trinity. So yeah, it should be interesting to see what the percentage is going to be of people and their choirs, how big they actually are compared to the size of their churches and stuff. All right. So yeah, a lot of things to think about, and I was thinking about it too. Next segment today, we do have foundational figures of Christianity. And for the foundational figures of Christianity, we are going to go over a very important person. His name is Matthew Henry, right? He's from the 17th century. He's a preacher and scholar. And he, if you guys will recognize his name, Matthew Henry, because a lot of times you'll see the commentary that he made on the entire Bible, right? And it's considered like one of the best and most widely used commentaries, right? Massive exposition of Scripture and enormous benefit to Christians because of his commentaries that he made. So we are going to go into his story. So a little bit more recent. We're going to the 17th century, a little bit closer to our time right now. All right, so before we get into that, let's get into the first break of the day.
Don't worry if you get no signs, 'cause everything will be alright. Promise me you won't leave me in the dark. Only one.
All right, so let's get into today's word study. And today we're going to talk about someone named Matthew Henry. He is very, very famous because of he's got a commentary on the entire Bible. Okay, so a lot of people may recognize his name because his commentary is used worldwide even today, and he's from the 17th century. All right, so let's get into Matthew Henry. So Matthew Henry was born on October 18th, 1662, not long after Black Bartholomew's Day, the date on which his father, in common with about 2,000 other ministers of the gospel, were ejected from the Church of England for refusing to compromise his conscience by taking the oath of uniformity, which basically binding those who took it to the prescribed forms of rite, ritual, and administration of the ordinances. Basically, it's about the Church of England becoming the main Church of England, and you had to abide by those rules. And people like his father, on the day of Black Bartholomew, 2,000 ministers who refused to submit to the Church of England were taken out or ejected from their churches. Okay, so who is Matthew Henry? He was a son of Philip Henry, a gifted scholar and faithful pastor with English and Welsh blood in his veins. Philip married a woman called Catherine Matthews, who lived at Broad Oak in Flintshire, not far from Whitchurch. Matthew, born at the farm in Broad Oak, which had become the family home, was the second child and second son. Marriage had given Philip an advantage over many other ejected ministers, the blessing of private means. And so he and his family did not face some of the privations suffered by other ejected ministers. And as a result, Matthew grew up in a loving, stable, and comfortable home, with both parents concerned for the spiritual well-being of their children, and where the worship of God had a daily and weekly rhythm. Born weak and sickly, Matthew, who's premature, nevertheless had a vigorous intelligence, and it was vigorously trained. From the age of about 10, he began to feel the convicting influence of the Spirit through the Word, and made a public profession of faith at the age of 16 or 17. In July 1680, Matthew was sent to Thomas Doolittle's Dissenting Academy in Islington, and that's in London, where he had a good testimony among his fellows. When sickness swept through the city, Matthew returned home to continue his studies, and in 1685 he returned to London to study law at Holborn Court, Gray's Inn. Thus, Matthew obtained a good education at a time when dissenters were at best second-class citizens. Dissenters are those that would not listen to the king and go to the Church of England, right? They were like second-class citizens, and at worst rebellious schismatics. Persecution and persecution was fierce. So Philip, his father, spent 3 weeks in custody at Chester during this period. Now, by the end of his training, Matthew knew Greek, Hebrew, and Latin, with some French, and he was a converted man with a sound grasp of theology, quick and plain with his pen, and learning to speak slowly and clearly. When he returned to Broad Oak in June 1686, his thoughts went again and more earnestly toward gospel ministry. God's blessing on Matthew's early preaching efforts confirmed his desire. Before long, in January 1687, a group of saints in Chester, spurred on by rumors of greater religious freedom, called the 25-year-old to be their pastor. Matthew headed first to London, where on May 9th he was ordained by 6 Presbyterian ministers, stating his convictions in language adapted from the Westminster Confession, and his first sermon in his new charge was preached on Thursday, June 2nd, 1687. Now, the new pastor set to work systematically and warm-heartedly. Each service included, alongside prayer and sung praises, both an exposition of the scriptures and a sermon, and in this way the people were exposed repeatedly to the whole counsel of God from both Old and New Testaments. Under God's blessing, Matthew saw several new communicants joining the church every month with thronged services, and also he married, despite her mother's initial opposition, a lady called Catherine Hardware in July 1687, but his wife died of smallpox after 18 months, leaving an infant daughter. July 1690, he married again to Mary Warburton. Their first 2 daughters both died in infancy. He preached widely and pastored effectively. His preaching was, in some ways, as methodical as his expounding. His first series was on the misery of the sinner, followed by one on conversion, then Christian conduct, then comforts for saints, with closing sermons to summarize the key points of the whole series. His notes were careful, his language plain, his text varied, his applications close and searching, his structure memorable and engaging. He was an energetic and earnest pulpit presence. During this period, Matthew also began to publish beginning with polemical pamphlets and including a selection of psalms and hymns. His first major work was his father's biography, published in 1697. In November 1704, Matthew started work on his written exposition of the Old Testament, and that was completed in 1712. And then moving to the New Testament and reaching the end of Acts by April 1714. The first volume was published in 1706. Now, in the face of discouragements and difficulties, some typical of any age and some peculiar to the times, the congregation grew and flourished. But Matthew's health began to suffer. He also began to receive repeated invitations to move to another sphere of pastoral labor. For years, he declined such invitations, but London was calling. 1710, a Hackney church, which had initially approached him in 1699, came knocking once more. Tentatively and slowly the relationship developed, and after much agonizing of soul, Matthew's last Lord's Day at Chester fell on May 11, 1712. He finished expounding Joshua and Matthew that day, preaching on 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, 17 to 18 in the afternoon service. And on his arrival in Hackney, he began expounding Genesis and Matthew, preaching on the first Sunday from Acts chapter 16. Now, the move to London increased his labors, but he made regular visits to Chester. The last of these was in June 1714 when he preached to his previous congregation and to others, though evidently struggling with ill health. Returning towards London, he reached Nantwich on Monday, June 21st, where he preached without much vigor. A restless night followed. He suffered a stroke at 5 o'clock in the morning of June 22nd and died shortly afterward, being 52 years old. On Friday, June 25th, his body was returned to Chester, where his body was interred in the Anglican Church building, Trinity, alongside his first wife. Little is known of the reaction of the Hackney Church or his surviving family, merely a few hints of abiding grief and sweet memories. Now, what about his writings? When the name Matthew Henry is mentioned, the mind of many turns first to his commentary. A fitting monument to this man of the world. Here, his intimate personal acquaintance with the scriptures, his puritanical upbringing and training, and the discipline of his weekly expounding of all come to fruition. It was a long-term labor of love. Henry chipped away at his work at all available hours, feeling the pressure to accomplish as much as he was able. As mentioned, he completed his exposition to the end of Acts with substantial work on Romans and Revelations also completed. Others took up the work and completed it from his notes under his name, although anyone familiar with Henry's style will notice a subtle shift as we move from his voice to that of others. His exposition is often dismissed today as, at best, a sort of devotional trawl through the Bible, lacking a proper critical apparatus, sacrificing academic nous for catchy alliteration and apposition, with a little something to be said for its pithy pungency. To judge him thus is self-defeating of a high order, because Henry's scholarship is of his time, but for his time he had the cutting edge, and besides, the display of learning is not his aim. He combines thoroughness and terseness, explanation with application, scholarly insight with popular tone. One may trawl through countless modern commentaries and come away with a technically accurate but potentially arid grasp of the sense. Henry drives engagingly at the heart. When you feel you know what the text says, he helps you to say it, and others tell you what it means. Henry presses home what it means to you and to others, and Henry's exposition carries you relentlessly from understanding to appreciation. So as such, there are sermonic storehouses which no preacher should be without, as he studies not just what the Bible means, but how to communicate it. Henry's admirers and students are legion, from Archibald Alexander, taking it as a whole and as adapted to every class of readers. This commentary may be said to combine more excellencies than any work of the kind which was ever written in any language, right? So there's also Whitefield, who read it repeatedly, right? And the last time, apparently, he read it on his knees and drew on it constantly in his sermons, to Spurgeon, who urged every minister ought to read it entirely and carefully through at least once. So we have barely time to mention his other writings, including a wonderful study of daily communion with God, a cheering treatment of the pleasantness of a religious life, a methodical survey of scriptural thoughts to employ in prayer together with biographical studies, and a variety of sermons, including funerals and ordinations, covering topics as diverse as meekness of spirit, sober-mindedness, and pastoral labor. So he's a man, a minister, in private and in public, in preaching and in writing, in his family, among his people, and further afield, Matthew Henry was a man delighted and governed by the word of God. A man of such conviction and spirit is surely a man to be appreciated and emulated, to be read and enjoyed. I hope that this brief story of Matthew Henry, his biography, will encourage you to live such a life too. So I would say powerful, living a life. Yes, he's not going to have all the answers, right? He's coming from a time like several hundred years ago, but for his time, he was ahead of his time. But the most inspiring thing for me is the life that he lived. He tried to live the spiritual life. He tried his best to live a life in God, walking with Christ. And this is what led to him being able to make a commentary of the entire Bible, like almost the entire Bible. So I hope it's something that we can learn from too and understand that's something that we can gain a lot from the future too. Okay, so there it is, guys. That is the end of today's Foundational Figures word study. Hope it's something that you guys super enjoyed. And yeah, if you have any questions or anyone else that you would like me to go over for Foundational Figures, please send it to me, write it to me in the comments below too. Okay, so before we get to health is happiness, let's get into the second break of the day.
You lift me up from falling, I feel your warm embrace, breathing life into my withering spirit, pouring out your love and grace. So I think to myself, I'll repay you. Ooh, oh. You pulled me out of darkness so many thousands of times. You gave me strength and courage, everything that I need in life. Look at all the countless blessings, I'll repay you. Ooh, oh. Even if the world forsakes you and they misunderstand what it means to be in providence, holding God's truth in our hands, we fulfill the greatest history, God's will and highest love. All the wondrous miracles you've shown, only here in Providence. Providence, push forward, we'll run till the end. With our solid faith, we'll repay you with all our heart, will and life. And now the seals are broken, the treasures now revealed. You've shared his highest wisdom, valued secrets of how to live. Looking back at all the memories, I'll repay you. Ooh, oh. Even if the world forsakes you and they misunderstand, what a blessing it is that you're here, acting with God hand in hand. We've received the greatest rapture, we've gained eternal joy. This is God's final history, never will it be destroyed. Providence will shine our brightest light for your dreams. Your word fills the earth. Yeah, we'll preach, gain all that you want to achieve. Even if the world forsakes you and they don't understand, we're more than proud to be here, Holding God's truth in our hands, we fulfill the greatest history. God's will and highest love, your words, your precious providence, we'll cherish it till the end. Providence, we'll stand till the end. Providence, we'll live with our God. Providence, love God with our heart, will and life.
Okay, so let's get into our final segment for today. And of course, right now it is Health is Happiness. We have a brand new 3-part segment coming out on mental health from Dr. Zinni over there in Canada. She's going to be talking about anxiety and depression. So I hope that this is going to be a good thing for all of us to understand, learn really well, so that we'll be able to help other people do this too. Okay, so either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this, everyone. This is Health is Happiness. This week, a 3-part series with Dr. Zinni.
Hi, everyone. It's another Wednesday, and welcome to episode 27 of Health is Happiness. I'm your host today, Dr. Zinni from Ontario, Canada, where I've been practicing family medicine for the last 12 years. So today we're going to focus on the important topic of mental health, specifically anxiety and depression. For this episode, we're going to focus on anxiety. So as Sensei Yim has taught us, our thoughts are our life, and our brain is that important organ that helps us connect with God to stay on the right path, discern what's right and wrong, and decide how we should act. Protecting our mental health and keeping it in a good state is crucial to helping us manage and cope with our everyday stressors so that we can stay strong even in the face of difficulties. But before I jump in, this is a disclaimer that any advice or education I give here isn't meant to replace seeking medical help, seeing your doctor, counselor, psychotherapist, or taking specific medications. Instead, my goal here is to give you basic knowledge and practical tools that you can use to supplement your coping strategies or build upon the skills you already have. So first off, what is anxiety? We've all felt it, right, to some degree? Anxiety is our body and mind's reaction to something dangerous, threatening, stressful, or even something unfamiliar. It's a spectrum. Sometimes it's mild, like a sense of uneasiness, nervousness, worry, or distress. So when you see that huge, hungry animal in front of you and your heart starts pounding, your hair stand up on end, you're sweating and you're panicking because what you do next determines your fate, you get that extreme feeling of fear, right? That's anxiety. Isn't that heightened response normal? Yeah, actually that's normal. It's your mind and body warning you that there's a threat in front of you so that you can focus and act accordingly. So why is anxiety a problem then? Well, it's not, if it's temporary and appropriate to the situation. It's adaptive in that case. A certain level of anxiety helps us stay alert and aware and to focus. But what if this anxiety state were prolonged? So prolonged it became chronic, or it came on when you didn't want it to come on. Where anxiety becomes problematic is when it's constant, excessive, unwarranted, or it starts to interfere with your everyday life. Maybe you're now avoiding certain situations, not able to attend work or school or church, not able to perform well at what you normally do, or it's affecting the way you interact with others or your relationships. Then that's when you know it's not just normal adaptive anxiety, and you should seek treatment. Clinical anxiety is when it's no longer helpful and it's working against you now. See, when you feel stress or anxiety, your body secretes hormones including cortisol, glucagon, epinephrine, norepinephrine. These cause your heart to beat faster than normal in order to supply enough blood to the muscles, heart, and other vital organs to deal with the threat or the stressor. Your pulse and your blood pressure go up. You start to breathe much more rapidly in order to take in as much oxygen as possible with each breath. The extra oxygen sent to the brain increases alertness, so your sight, hearing, and senses become sharper. Meanwhile, the epinephrine and glucagon triggers the release of blood sugars and fats from temporary storage sites in the body. These nutrients flood into the bloodstream, supplying energy to the necessary parts of the body. But these reactions are not meant to be prolonged or constant. If your anxiety or stress is long-term, the constant cortisol and glucagon being secreted can cause elevated sugars, increase your appetite, cause weight gain, and fat buildup. The constant elevated blood pressure and pulse rate can cause damage to the blood vessels and lead to hypertension or increase your risk of heart disease and stroke. The sympathetic fight or flight response also suppresses the digestive tract, so that you end up with stomach pain, nausea, and digestion issues. Your body and mind are constantly in overdrive due to the adrenaline, so you feel exhausted. So you can see how chronic anxiety can manifest itself as a host of daily physical symptoms. Today, I'm going to review some practical techniques to overcome feelings of anxiety and even panic attacks. This is by targeting the two parts of anxiety we know. First, we have to gain control over the physiological response of anxiety. Second, we have to correct our thoughts related to anxiety. So first is gaining control over your physiological response. You have to recognize the signs and understand how the body is reacting. Then you won't misinterpret it. When people are having anxiety or a panic attack, the heart pounds to bring more oxygen to their tissues. They start to hyperventilate in an attempt to get more oxygen to their bodies. But then they sense their palpitations, their rapid heart rate, and their shortness of breath, and they may begin to think that they're choking, having a heart attack, or about to die. They may think they're losing control over their bodies or are going crazy. These are characteristics of a panic attack. The problem is, these thoughts escalate the anxiety further, and the physiological responses amplify. So it becomes a vicious cycle. So the key is to break the cycle, and the first step is to slow down the breathing. When we hyperventilate in an attempt to gain more oxygen, we end up blowing off carbon dioxide, CO2. And if this happens for too long, you'll end up blowing off too much CO2, causing the pH to rise in your bloodstream. And this actually causes narrowing of the blood vessels and less delivery of blood to your brain and your extremities. That's why in hyperventilation, you end up getting lightheaded and dizzy. You also get numbness and tingling around your mouth, in your fingertips and your toes because of a shift in electrolytes and because you're not delivering enough blood to these distant sites. So understanding this, you can acknowledge that the heart pounding, rapid breathing, and other signs are the body's physiological response to anxiety. Then, the key is to slow down the breathing so less carbon dioxide is expelled. That is the basis of why people breathe into a paper bag, in order to increase CO2 levels by rebreathing exhaled air. A slower breathing pattern is normally associated with feeling relaxed, so that feedback to your brain helps you feel more relaxed, and that in turn dampens the downstream effects of hyperventilation and de-escalates the cycle. There are a few ways to achieve slower breathing, and I'll review with you the two techniques I find most effective. One is called the physiological sigh. When we sigh, it's a deep inhalation followed by a pause and then a full expiration, letting go of all of your air. Because there is that pause, and because the expiration phase is prolonged, this naturally slows down the breathing. And once you expel all of your air, your next breath in tends to be a more normal breath. We talk about abdominal breathing a lot. This is where the diaphragm lowers to expand your lungs, and your abdomen pushes out as a consequence. We find ourselves breathing naturally or normally when we're sleeping or relaxed. I find that with the physiological sigh, the normal abdominal breathing comes naturally without hiking up your ribs or using accessory muscles to breathe. And sighing is our normal way of letting go of our stress, so it naturally relaxes you. It's also easy to learn and access when you need it. Okay, so on to the second technique. If you need a bit more structure, you might find boxed breathing effective for you. Boxed breathing is breathing as if you were tracing a box. Each side of the box is 4 seconds long. You first start off with an inhalation of 4 seconds, best through your nose. This is followed by a pause of 4 seconds. And then you exhale for 4 seconds, and you pause again for 4 seconds. This technique ensures that your expiration and inspiration phases are equal, but the 4-second pauses in between ensures that your breathing rate is not too fast. Okay, so now you know the techniques to gain control over your physiological responses. Next is controlling your mind and your thoughts. When you're having anxiety in the moment, you can do a few things. You can reassure yourself with positive self-talk that everything is going to be okay. You can use logical thinking so you're not misinterpreting your bodily symptoms as something more. You can focus on a soothing word such as peace or calm, visualize yourself in a tranquil scene or a happy place. Distract yourself or be mindful about things in the room. So focus on something else other than your anxiety. Try 5 other things in the room around you to get your mind off of your bodily symptoms. And of course, let's not forget, you can use prayer and meditation to help calm yourself. It's important to note that all of the techniques you've learned in this episode have to be practiced over and over again until it becomes automatic and easily accessible at the time you need it. There's also a very powerful technique called CBT, Cognitive Behavioral Therapy. In the next episode, we'll go over in detail how we can use CBT to correct unhealthy thought patterns that provoke the feelings of anxiety and depression. We'll also talk about how we can realign our thoughts with God to overcome mental health conditions like depression. So it's now the end of this episode. I hope you've enjoyed learning about anxiety. Take care and join us for the next episode on depression.
And thank you so much, Dr. Zinni, for another wonderful episode of Health is Happiness on a very, very important topic, mental health, anxiety, and depression. Today was anxiety, and from next week, it'll be a 2-parter on depression. If you guys have any other questions, make sure you put them into, you can put them in the comments below, or you can email them to Health is Happiness email that's going to be in the description below. All right, so there it is, guys. Hope you guys have an amazing and awesome Wednesday. Have a great service tonight, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow on The Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and feel your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this.